Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast with Dr. Andre. You are now listening to your number one source for clear, unfiltered conversations about your health and wellness. Join us every Tuesday for success stories, educational topics, and interviews with wellness experts from around the world. You can listen to this podcast on your computer, phone, or any other electronic device that streams podcasts, or download each episode and listen to it on the go. Let's get started with today's episode.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Healthy Reasonings podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm so excited because I managed to get through episode 1. And they say once you get started, that's the first step towards being consistent. I want to say a special thank you to the many of you who reached out to me to tell me how much you appreciated episode 1. It's very, very helpful to have support when you're doing something like this. I consider this work a labor of love. It's a pleasure for me to share my experiences, and I look forward to doing as many episodes as I can. So a special thanks to those who showed their support by listening to the episode, downloading the episode, calling me, those who know me well, to let me know that I that I sounded good, and generally showing your support. If this is your first time listening, though, I want to let you know that it's not too late to show your support. The first thing to do is to subscribe or follow this podcast in the podcast app or player of your choice. And of course, you want to download the episode because that helps with the algorithm as well. And it wouldn't help to leave a review or comment. And finally, remember to share with a friend. Share with somebody who you think might need this information, because the Healthy Reasonings podcast is your number one podcast for clear, unfiltered opinions and views on your health and wellness. And while we're on that topic, I just want to remind you, of course, it doesn't need to be said, but I'll still say it, that everything we're discussing on this podcast is general medical discussion. It is not intended to be used as specific medical advice for your concern. If you are having a medical concern of some kind, please ensure that you speak with your personal physician. This is not intended to be medical advice for your specific condition. All right, got that out of the way. And today's episode is going to be focused on a very interesting topic. And it's a topic that's dear to me because it helps me to get my belief system out there right out of the gate, so you know exactly where I'm coming from for episodes to come. And so today we're going to be talking about why I pray with my patients. Why I pray with my patients. And the reason why it's important for me to share this with you is because I want to let you know that, first of all, I am a Christian. And I'm not saying that you have to be a Christian, but I am. And it informs the way how I practice medicine. Why? Because I believe that we were created by a higher being. In my case, that higher being is God. And as a result of that, it helps to form a framework for how I approach every patient that comes into my office, because it helps me to recognize that I am not the manufacturer of this machine, for want of a better word, that's coming into the office. We're using an analogy here. So when a mechanic has a car come in for repairs, he has to recognize that he's not the manufacturer, he is merely the mechanic. And as a result of that, his job is to identify where the problem is and help to get the machine, or in this case, the human body, as close as possible back to its factory settings. And because I am a believer in a higher being, which is God, it helps me to set a framework for how I relate to my patients and how my patients relate to me. So today we're going to be talking about the 4 reasons why I pray with my patients. And if you're one of my patients, you would have noticed that I always do this. It's not a ritual. It has very specific reasons why I do it. Because they're specific, I think it's so helpful for me to go through them, because I keep having to explain them to each patient anyway. So maybe I can just refer them back to this podcast, can't I? All right, so the reason number one, remember we're talking about 4 reasons why I pray with my patients. Reason number one, it is extremely relaxing to pray. And this is not just a faith-based statement. This is something that has been proven throughout science. I'm going to try to leave a couple of the studies in the show notes, but I'm sure I'm not telling people anything new. It is extremely relaxing to pray. It centers the brain waves. It reduces the excess firing of the brain and helps to get the body into what we call a parasympathetic state, where it's better able to relax. And so when a patient comes in to see me, most times, if the patient, for example, has been diagnosed with cancer, most times it's a difficult conversation to have. The patient enters with a lot of fear, sometimes anger, sometimes just really in an extreme state of disbelief. And it's very important for us to be able to get past that to speak about the facts surrounding the situation so that we can start looking for solutions. So, having a patient pray, notice I said that they pray or you pray when you come to see me. It's very helpful to setting an atmosphere where the patient feels more relaxed, better able to share their story, better able to receive the information that I'm going to give them. Because there have been times where I'm trying to give the patient good information, where they have a really good prognosis, where there's something that I need to share with them that's actually good, but because they're so overwhelmed at the minute, they're not able to even absorb it. So, reason number one is that it helps to relax the patient and set an atmosphere for open and honest discussion. Reason number two is that, especially in my country, Jamaica, we have the most churches per square mile of any country in the world. And that speaks to the fact that we are a highly religious country. Most of the patients that come to see me have at some point heard about God. And so it's not distracting for them to have to pray, for example, or to acknowledge that God exists. But at the same time, and this goes for most cultures, not just mine, without knowing it or without expressing it, many times a patient coming to see the doctor has an expectation almost that it is the doctor who is going to heal them. And this is not the case. Especially for me, I acknowledge that I am not able to heal someone per se. It is always going to be God using me to administer healing to the person. Or sometimes, for those of you who know some of the cases I've seen, sometimes God just works independently of me and heals the patient anyway. But it's important for the patient to know that I am not God, and therefore, by praying to God at the beginning of the session, it helps to reestablish consciously in the patient's mind that the person sitting in front of them is merely an instrument being used by God. And God is actually present with us and able to intervene to administer the healing that they seek. And this is usually extremely helpful, again, to help to relax the patient, but also to help to set the perspective that when you come in to see me, there's a third party in the room who is going to be helping us to get the wisdom to know how best to help you. So that was reason number two. Reason number three is this. When things go really, really well with my cases, especially my cancer cases or cases with chronic illnesses such as autoimmune illnesses, there have been some seriously ill patients who have gotten well in my practice, and I'm grateful for that. But it's important for me to remember that when things go well, it's not because I am God, and to remember to give God gratitude and credit for what has happened, because any wisdom that I have had is wisdom that He has given to me to help me to administer the best techniques that I'm aware of for the patient, and thus leading to the outcome that we both wanted. And so it's important for me to remember that I am not God. because then it helps to keep me dependent on God. And whilst we're talking about this is reason number 3 why I pray with my patients, I want to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
In a world that moves too fast, it's easy to lose touch with what truly matters, your well-being. At Teshuva Wellness, we believe in a return to balance, to healing, to your best self. Our holistic approaches nurture not just your body, but also your soul. Whether you're seeking peace, energy, or a deeper connection, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Our medical experts specialize in holistic treatments for chronic diseases, ranging from autoimmune illnesses to cancer. Our treatments are safe, non-toxic, and effective. Because at Teshuva Wellness, your journey to wellness is our greatest commitment. Visit our website today at teshuvawellnessjae.com or call 1-876-787-8197. That's 1-876-787-8197. Teshuva Wellness. Return to health. Return to your best self.
All right, so we're back, and we have gone through 3 reasons so far of the 4 why I pray with my patient. The first is that generally it causes the patient to feel relaxed, and to a lesser extent, I also feel quite relaxed, knowing that the patient is relaxed, because the tension sometimes is almost palpable. You can feel it in the room, and nobody really needs that if we're going to be creating an environment for healing. So number 1 is that the patient feels more relaxed. Number 2 is that it's important for the patient to recognize that though I am the one who is going to be helping them, it's ultimately God that's going to be healing them. And number 3, as I mentioned, is when things go really well, which I must say I've been fortunate enough to have several things go well with my patients. It helps to remind me that I am not God. And here's number 4, which is actually quite similar. Is when things go wrong, which for every single doctor at some point, things are going to go wrong. Hopefully not through any fault of our own as doctors, but even with our best efforts, sometimes things just go wrong. The patient has a less than desirable outcome, or something else intervenes that interferes with the patient's ability to heal. And during those moments, it can be easy for me to become hard on myself and to not exercise self-compassion and to take the blame for what is going wrong with the patient's case. And so in situations like those, it's important for me to be able to remember that when things go wrong, I am not God. And ultimately, though I'm going to do the best I can for every single patient, it's really ultimately up to God at the end of the day to determine what the outcome is. And sometimes just by having a patient sit in the office before I even ask the first question and to hear them pray, to say, hey, many of them, to be quite frank, feel so taken aback by the request to pray. But it helps to center me as well, because I'm preparing to go on a journey with this patient. And there's a possibility that things may not go right. There's a possibility that things may initially go right and then go wrong. Things may start going wrong and then eventually turn around. But whatever the journey turns out to be, that initial prayer that the patient makes helps to center me as well, to remind me that the outcome is independent of me, and I'm just contributing my best efforts and my best understanding of the human body to the process. And so we've spoken about 4, and I told you it was going to be 4 reasons why I pray with my patients, but I'm going to give you a bonus reason. And the bonus reason is simply this. And it's funny, I didn't intend to necessarily discuss it in this episode, but here we are, so let's go. The truth is, I have always noticed, I've been doing work in cancer since 2006 when I entered residency. And there has always been an undercurrent that I've noticed with my patients. And it's undeniable as I've trained with different doctors across the world who have had their own experiences, who themselves have their own religious beliefs, or maybe don't have any faith beliefs at all. Nobody can deny at this point that the majority of disease that we see as doctors has somewhere in it an emotional or spiritual root. And what does that mean? It means that much of what we are seeing manifesting as disease in patients is due to a root that is not physical. Does this mean that the patient does not have any physical disease or there's no physical symptoms? No. But one of my great mentors once said to me that he's been practicing medicine for the past 55 years. And had he taken the time to understand, sorry, I got the numbers wrong. He's been practicing medicine for the past 45 years. And his observation is that at least 55% of the disease that we see as doctors is rooted in the emotions. And what does that mean? It means, therefore, that even with our best efforts to help with the physical symptoms, and in some cases to get reversal of the physical symptoms and the physical element of the disease, we're still less than half of the way to getting the patient to heal. And so a large part of my practice and the way I practice is not just about my own faith, but it is about the fact that I believe that there's an emotional root, particularly to cancer. And so if there's an emotional root, the earlier I can set, I like to think of it almost as throwing a stone into the water and creating that ripple effect. The earlier I can start that emotional journey for the patient is the more likely that we'll get to the true root of the problem. And I could tell you story after story of patients that I've seen in extreme illness, at the extreme of the spectrum of disease. I mean, I treat a lot of cancer, and to see how much of it, how much of their symptoms, how much of even their lab work, how much of the changes that take place with their physical energy is attributable to them getting an emotional assessment of what's going on with their life otherwise. It's almost unbelievable sometimes to see some of the changes that take place in my patients just by having proper professional emotional assessment and help administered. And I think by asking a patient to pray at the very beginning of our session, it helps to kind of turn that light bulb on, I think, at the beginning for them to think, hey, wait a sec. I've been kind of cruising along with this disease, seeing in many cases they would have seen other doctors before seeing me. I've never really thought about the emotional side of things. And I'll tell you what, the honest truth is the majority of the patients who come to see me, they find it difficult to start off with prayer. There's a look of shock. There's a look of, whoa, what do you mean pray? And I'll say, yeah, let's pray. Do you believe in God? Yes, I do. Do you believe that he wants to heal you? And then the pause comes. Oh, I didn't think about that. All right, so let's get started then. Let's talk about it. Let's have you talk to God. And they'll say something like, doctor, would it be okay if maybe you prayed? And I say, no, like, why do you need me to pray? You can go ahead. And then it's that shyness, it's that slowly you can see the courage building, and they start to remind themselves, oh, wait a sec, there's somebody else I can talk to about this. And what follows after the prayer is always this sense of a smile on the face. The patient will say, wow, doc, I haven't done that in a very long time. Thank you for that opportunity. Or they'll say something that helps me to understand that maybe they feel ashamed or they feel like they're not worthy. So they'll say something like, doc, I haven't spoken to God in a very long time. I didn't think that he would hear me. And so immediately I start to understand what's going on with this patient, because they've almost given me a look into one of the dominant emotions that may be present. Let's pause for a quick word about how you can help this podcast. All right, we're back. Yeah, so we've spoken about turned out to be 5 reasons why I pray with my patients. The first one, as I said, is because it relaxes the patient, and of course, it kind of relaxes me as well. The second is it reminds the patient that though I may be helpful, I am not God. The third is that it reminds me that when things go really well, as I've been fortunate to see happen, I'm definitely not God. The fourth is that when things go wrong, it reminds me that I don't need to beat up on myself because, again, I'm not God. And the fifth is something that we can talk about a little bit more in subsequent episodes. In fact, I'm going to bring in a special guest in the future to talk about how important it is to have emotional healing when dealing with chronic illnesses such as cancer. And so I really hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. We're just setting the stage with these early episodes because I want to help you to understand how I think, how I view disease, and how I view my patients, so that it can inform how you listen to the podcast moving forward, and it helps to set the stage. So I encourage you to listen to these early episodes. So you have episode 1 to listen to now, and episode 2 is what you just listened to. The first couple episodes are going to set the framework for why I do things the way I do them, and I dare say why I get the results that I do. And so if this is important to you, I'm glad that you listened today. Remember, you can reach out to me on social media at wellness.jamaica, WELLNESSDOC, Jamaica. I'd love to have you reach out to me. Also, of course, as you heard a while ago, remember to subscribe to the podcast on your respective podcast player or app. Remember to leave a review or comment. If you're on Spotify, you can leave a voice memo. Remember to share this podcast with a friend. We're developing a movement of healthy reasoners on the Healthy Reasoning Podcast, your number 1 podcast for clear, unfiltered views about health and wellness. See you soon.